Hello, hi, this is Gurley, the instructor of the Physiology, Anatomy and Physiology 1 Bio 23, and this is the first video of a series of video that we briefly go through the summary page of each topic. And today we start with the first topic, the characteristics of life. And so in the first topic, we talk about all the common features of life. And so far, we don't think any people have discovered what's the nature of life, what's the common, very feature that make life alive. However, since among all these forms of life that we have discovered so far, we do have a list of common features that we share by all forms of life. And in this topic, we just list all of those here. Not all of those, the most important here. And first of all life so far we have discovered on Earth are made of cells. And we haven't discovered any life after Earth. And they may have cells or may not, but it's likely they still have the cell as a kind of a structure like cell. So what's the thing here is that we say all form of life made of cells. It means no matter how complicated this life form is, it still has a very fundamental unit, and this unit is the cell. So what is a cell anyway? A cell here. So this is cell. Oh, what happened to my pen? Let me change. How can I change it? Okay, good. Cell. So our cell so far we have discovered has four common components. Firstly, a cell has a boundary, and this we call it a cell membrane or plasma membrane. And this membrane it forms the boundary of the cell to control the traffic in and out. And then inside the cell plasma membrane, there's a water-based environment, internal environment, and this environment we call it cytoplasm. And then in the cytoplasm, the special molecules stay here. Sometimes it's circle, sometimes it's linear. This is the DNA. All cells have DNA, and DNA serve as the genetic materials to transform genetic information from one generation to the next generation. And then in the cytoplasm, there are different things. And what's in common in all type of cell is this thing we call them ribosomes. Ribosome is a molecular machine whose function is to make proteins. So that's the common feature of all the cells. And another common feature of all the cells that so far we have discovered in the on the Earth is that how they generate new cells. Cells has generate new cells, and where this new cell came from? A new cell always come from an old cell, always arise from a pre-existing cells. And how they pre-exist? How they get them? Old cells replicate to two new cells, and this called cell replication or cell division. A new cells always come from cell division. And this so far, all the cells applications so far we have found in the Earth follow this way. And then another thing is that all life on Earth made of cells, but some of those make only one cell. Some of those made of multiple cells. If there's only one cell, we call them unicellular organism. If it's many different cells, we call it multicellular organism. Sorry for my handwriting. And then, so what kind of cells are unicellular? In the nature, we can categorize all form of life into six major categories. We call it six kingdoms, which including bacteria, archaea, Oh, oh, what happened? Let me do it again. Good. Okay, I had right again. So sixth kingdom, bacteria, archaea, protist. I guess you don't know what is protist and archaea is, but it's fine. It's not focused on this semester. Fungi. Oh, where is it? Fungi, plant, and animals. And for all of those, yes, bacteria, archaea, protists, or most of those unicellular. Fungi, some fungi, plants and animals are multicellular. A multicellular organism, not only that they have multiple cellular, but also in this organism, different cells there are different cells. And these different cells are specialized to conduct different tasks to support the survival of this organism. And also these different cells they have to communicate with each other all the time. So that's what we call it a multiple cellular organisms. And it doesn't matter how many cells one single individual has, it always starts from one single cell to start with. So let's go back to the and so let's think about, for example, human being. A human being starts with one cell, and this cell derived from at the very beginning. This is an egg, and this is a sperm. A sperm fertilizes the egg, and this we call it fertilization. When the sperm fertilizes eggs, it generates this thing. A fertilized egg, we call it zygote. A zygote is one cell, and then it gradually differentiated into the whole body. And then this process from a zygote to a whole individual body, we call them a development. Where is the development? Yes, this is a development. And the development is very special, is an essential process for all the multiple cellular organisms to become independent life. And the development, during the development, one special thing we call it cell differentiation. What do you mean by cell differentiation? At the beginning of the development, maybe only the cell divide. For example, one cell become two cells, and then four cells. And at some point, and at the beginning, very beginning, this cell actually that's not true. One cell becomes two cells. They become smaller and smaller. They call it cleavage. At the beginning, these cells are all the same, but at a certain point, there's one cell and become two cells. Once one of the daughter cells is still the same as the parental cells, and the other cells become a little different. It's specialized to do something special, and this we call it differentiation. And the differentiation means the daughter cells become different than the parental cell and gain more special function. And in this case, the parental cells, which can produce a new cell called stem cells. The stem cell had two capabilities. One is to this way, to make something of their own, self-renew. This is called self-renewal. And then this is differentiation. So one way, differentiation, long word. In one way, the stem cells produce cells exactly as it was to maintain its own population, and then produce more different cells. And those differentiated cells, normally they are further different than the original cells and gain some special functions to maintain to conduct the normal body functions. So this is differentiation, which is mm, mm, a very critical steps in the development. And compared to development, there's another step called growth. What's the difference? Sometimes we want to make it compare growth and the development. What's the difference? In the process of development, there's new cell type showing up, and say we've probably finished our development after puberty, or maybe some a few years beyond puberty. But for people like me at my age, there's no more development going on, only growth. Like I grow more fat. So, and this called growth. And what's different with the growth? In terms of growth, no new cell types and no new tissues growing on in my body. That's growth. And then in the development, always more structures, more new cell types showing up in the body. And so that's all about the cells. And then in any form of life, if they want to live in this environment, in this given environment, they have to have the capability of sensing the environment, sensing what's changed in the environment, chemical changes, for example, pH, more sugar, less sugar, more salt, or physical change, like say higher temperature, higher pressure, etc., etc. And then when it's sensing it, it's not the end. When it senses, it has response. And that's the sensing response is a very fundamental feature of all form of life. And in human, we have specialized system to sense the environmental changes. That's the nervous system. And then we also have a very specialized response to the environmental changes. And for example, our muscle is a quick response to many of those stimuli. And some of the glands, for example, when you feel hot, you have the sweat, right? And so and we have also some very specialized sense. For example, we can sense the light, we can sense the sounds. So that's it. But that's the sensing and the response. And next, let's talk about another thing happening in the body: metabolism. So you may heard the word metabolism. But what does it mean by metabolism? Metabolism basically that means the specialized chemical reactions, all the chemical reactions happening inside an organism. In the human body, that means all the chemical reactions happening in the human body. So, and then what's special about the chemical reaction in the human body? What's different between the reaction in the body and outside the body? So, the chemical reaction happening inside the body is much faster than those chemical reactions happening outside the body. It's so fast that many of those chemical reactions happening inside the body would not happen at all outside the body. And so to make that happen, to make that happen, there's special form of enzyme molecule, we call it enzymes. Most enzymes are proteins. Only some of those are RNAs, but most of those are proteins. Enzyme is a special proteins or molecules that make reactions happening much faster. It cannot change. Please keep in mind, it cannot change the direction of the reaction, but it can make it happen much faster. It's so fast, sometimes it's almost impossible to happen without the enzymes. And in this case, there's two directions of metabolism. There are two directions here. One is catabolism. The other is anabolism. What's the difference? Catabolism, for example, you have eat some starch. Starch is joined up by glucose, and then in your body it breaks down into glucose, and then each of those glucose become a energy. This is catabolism. Basically, catabolism digest or breaking down the food or any of the big molecules into small molecules and then harvest energy from the big molecules. And sometimes the catabolism not only breaking down the molecules harvest energy, sometimes they also get the building materials here. Building materials. And then, I don't know. And those building materials, the body will further use those building materials to make their own special structure, like a protein. So, and this process, they're using the building materials to make the body's own molecule, big molecule, they call anabolism. And then anabolism also need energy. So there's a direction of a catabolism and anabolism. We eat different type of food, the sugar, the carbohydrates, proteins, fat, but none of those we use directly. For example, building our muscles. Building our muscle need proteins, and then maybe you eat a big chunk of beef. Can those proteins in the beef go directly to your muscle? The answer is no. You don't directly use the proteins in your food. Rather, the proteins is digested into amino acids. We'll talk about it later. Amino acids further and regrow into proteins, and this proteins is our own protein. So this is a metabolism, which include catabolism, anabolism, and all of the process. Almost all of those need a special molecule called enzymes. And then through all of those metabolism, the main purpose of all of those metabolism is to maintain a relatively stable internal environment. And this stable internal environment, we have a special name called homeostasis. A homeostasis is that all of those organisms have the capability of maintain their internal environment relatively stable, and which means you cannot allow some certain molecule to go too high or to go too low, and kind of. So they call it osmosis and many different things. So and the thing is how the body, any of those say organisms can maintain their homeostasis. A special way to maintain homeostasis that we call it this way. Where's my negative feedback loop. Negative feedback loop. What does it mean, negative feedback loop? For example, it's a very, very abstract thing. You have something called A, and A cause B. And then what happened B and then inhibit A is still too abstractive. Let's say hungry. So when you're hungry, you want to eat. And when you eat, you don't feel any hungry. And then there's a very simple example of the negative feedback loop. So one example of negative feedback loop is the body temperature. So the body temperature, all animals, all plants need to stay in a special body temperature. Okay, I need to use a new page. Okay. So for example, too hot, too cold will not support the survival of many many species. So, but in this case, in terms of body temperature, there are different animals. For example, human being we call it endothermal animals, which means we can generate our own heat to maintain our body temperature. And some other animals, for example, lizard, frog, we call it ecto, not exo. ectothermal animals. So how human can regulate our own body temperature? When we feel hot, human sweating to reduce the temperature. When we feel cold, shivering to generate more heat. And then when we feel hot, sweating, reduce hot. When we feel cold, shivering, reduce cold. That's one of the two things to regulate body temperature. And then in human skin, there's also special ways to regulate body temperature. That is the skin surface blood vessels. Skin surface blood vessels. When we are cold, skin surface blood vessels shrink, so prevent the heat loss from the body. And then we are hot, the human skin blood vessels expand, so more heat will be released from the skin surface. So this is a typical negative feedback loop of human being to regulate the temperature. And what else? Let me see what else is needed. Yep, I think that's all we needed. And in the slides, I also have several examples of the negative feedback loop. And then in the test, I may put some of those examples as a question for you to judge whether it's a good negative feedback loop or not. So, and but in this world, only mammals, including like human, cat, dog, horse, all mammals, and birds are endothermal animals. And some people believe that dinosaurs are also endothermal animals. But overall, the existing animals, only birds and mammals. All the rest are not. And all the rest are ectothermal thermal animals. And what's the benefits and the disadvantage of being endothermal? Being endothermal needs a lot of energy. Human, mammals, and birds eat way more food than the lizard, the frog, and the snake. And the benefit is that because birds and mammals can regulate their own body temperature, their core body temperature remain in a very narrow range. There's another example of homeostasis. And then coming back, I hope you still remember what the enzyme is. Since in birds and mammals, the core body temperature can be remain in a very narrow range, their enzymes can be more efficient because it doesn't have to worry about the temperature fluctuation. It can evolve to fit only in one narrow range of temperature. So that's the benefits of being endothermal animals. And in human and other organisms, there is another feedback loop, call it positive feedback loop. What does it mean by positive feedback loop? I mean, I'm teaching the class. Of course, I want all of you to have a positive feedback of my teaching. But in the body, a positive feedback loop is not a good thing. For example, A induces B, and going back, B also induces A. In this feedback loop, it is no way to stop it. So once positive feedback loop starts, you cannot stop it. In the human body, the positive feedback loop is always usually associated with some disease condition, pathological conditions. You can look into my slides, have some examples. And for example, the forming of the kidney stone is a typical positive feedback loop. So in the body, we do not like the positive feedback loop. So almost there. And a species. So far, we do not. There's one type of a jellyfish we have found is immortal. In most form of life, they are not immortal. They live over a certain period of time. So in this case, if a species can stay in the population, one population want to stay in the earth, they have to be able to keep producing new individuals in this population. Otherwise, when the old individual die, the whole population gone. So, and this capability of producing new individuals, they call it reproduction. So, all species so far we found has a capability of producing new individuals, and all we call it reproduction. And reproduction can be conducted in different ways. Either we call it, let's start a new page. This page has delete this one. Okay. Good. Repro. This is my first time using this a pad, a writing pad for things. Look very ugly. Sorry. So there's mainly two types of reproduction: asexual or sexual. The major difference between asexual and sexual is that sexual has the fertilization. I'm not sure. Which means the fertilization means a sperm fertilize an egg. That's it. So if there's fertilization, it's sexual. If there's no fertilization, asexual. And the good thing about asexual actually is save energy, it's faster. You don't really have to find a mate of reproduction. You can do it all by yourself. I mean, no human can do this by yourself for sure. So, but asexual is more efficient, faster, and sexual reproduction can consume more energy. But what's the benefits of a sexual fertilization, a sexual reproduction? Keep this question, we'll talk about very soon. So in all type of reproduction, there's a parent, another parent. They mate and get a kid. And another key rule of reproduction is that the kid is always similar to the parents. For example, a parent has two arms, a kid has two arms. One head, and then maybe even more. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. So the major features always pass from generation to generation. How? Why? Why my daughter does not have 3 arms? Why my daughter does not have 3 eyes? That's all because there's special thing that transport that is inherited. We call it inherited from generation to generation. This is the DNA. Reproduction always is done with inheritance, and DNA is the material that carry the genetic information. This genetic information going from generation to generation, so that we keep our major features unchanged from generation to generation. However, main features unchanged. If species using asexual reproduction, then in many cases there very little change, not completely. Here, little change of the genetic material. Not completely, no, but little. But in sexual reproduction, more variation from generation to generation. And this more variation, what's the benefits of more variation? Because we are living in a world that's constantly changing. You may have heard of the global warming. And even without global warming, this Earth, this universe is constantly changing. There's always some unpredicted environment that may showing up just tomorrow or next year. And one feature adapted to the current environment, there's no guarantee that this creature and this species or population will fit the environment of tomorrow, of next year. So how a species, a population can make sure they can live, they can survive, thrive on this constantly changing world by generating a lot of more variations from generation to generation. And this process, we call it a special name for it, evolution. This is evolution. Evolution have two major things. The species is ever changing, and all species has one common ancestor. Sorry. So, and back to one of the most important theory about evolution, we call it natural selection. Okay, I need to go back to see my summer slides. I'm not sure it's required. Okay, yes, it is. So what is natural selection though? The key thing about natural selection is that first, you have to have the variation within the population. And this variation has to exist before any environmental changes. And this variation, how we can get variation? Reproduction. Asexual reproduction can generate a little bit variation through DNA mutation, but the sexual reproduction constantly generates a lot of variation in the population. So that's the benefits of the sexual reproduction. And this variation in the population showing up randomly. It doesn't have a purpose. It's just the byproduct of the asexual or sexual reproduction, especially sexual reproduction. And then some of those fit the environment. We call it adaptation. And once a certain variation fit the environment, it adapt to the environment, what happened? It expand in this population. And gradually, this variation may be dominant the whole population. And then once this variation dominate the whole population, some of those will stay for a long time. Like, for example, we endothermal animals. And then we have our skin, the hair, all of those are very good variations that stay here in our population. Now, some of those may not fit the future environment and be discarded by the population. In any way, the key about natural selection is that variation pre-exists in population, and then the environment select those that adapt to the environment. And how you can evaluate adaptation means there are two things. First, not only one thing, how many offspring will survive. That's the key thing to evaluate whether one adaptation, one variation is adaptation. That's whether it increase the survival of the offspring. Not in survival offspring till their reproduction age. So this is the evolution. Reproduction, inheritance, and evolution. That's all exists all in all features. And lastly, let's say the last thing. I opened a new page, but actually only one thing. Lastly, this is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that I always think has to be one thing that particularly drive all the others. And in my personal opinion, this is the highly organized. All features, all creatures, or life forms are highly organized. You look into the molecular structure of the cells of the body. All of those are highly organized. And then only life can produce this highly organized structures like computer, like this building we're living in. So organization, highly organization may be, in my personal opinion, maybe the fundamental feature of life. And then, improbably at the very beginning, origin of life, several molecules happen to join together in a highly organized way. That's been bound. That's the origin of life. So that's it. That's all for today. And thank you for viewing. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.